You're live.
Good. Wednesday, November 13th, 2024. We'll start off the meeting with a roll call from my right to left.
Tom Wachowski.
Nick
Greg-
Hebert. Oh, sorry.
Oh,
Nick Hebert.
Greg McPherson.
Bush Yan, here.
Seth Davis.
And then, do we have any correspondence from the select board, Mary?
Well, we got the report that I sent you from the rear, right?
I don't believe I've seen that.
Yeah, sent it to you as soon as you got it.
What do we have two?
Yeah, I have a copy I can give you in a minute
Yeah, it'd be
of
great.
the report from Ben about your questions about the affordable housing and ADUs. So.
Maybe I do have that. I apologize. Thank you. Thank you, Mary. Next order of business is we will review the meeting minutes for October 23rd, 2024. Which have those in front of them. I'm looking for a motion to approve, or
So moved.
Are you talking about the 23rd of October?
correct.
Yeah, you have me listed down as being present. I wasn't.
Okay.
I have to apologize for missing the last two meetings. I didn't hear about it.
I think it says absent Davis Gannett Roth.
Yeah, it does say you're absent on the.
Oh, all right, good. I guess you got to read it more clearly.
Looking for a second.
Second.
Tom, how do you vote?
Yes.
Nick?
Yes.
Seth?
Yes.
Butch?
Yes.
So moved. We move to approve the meeting minutes of Wednesday, October 23rd, as written. Next order of business is we have a public hearing for the Tom Wachowski mini,
Well done.
mini self-storage conditional use permit. We'll look for a motion to suspend planning board meeting and open public hearing.
Motion to suspend.
Looking for a second.
Second.
Tom?
Yes.
Nick?
Yes.
Yes.
Butch?
Yes.
So moved. So now that we will start off this public hearing with a short, Tom, you can give a short presentation of your project for anybody that has missed any meetings.
How you doing? My name is Tom Wachowski. I'm here as a member of the public, putting in a conditional use permit for a small self-storage facility. To be located on the same lot that I currently have a small used car lot. Building should be 25 by 100, under 3,000 square feet, depending on the prices. Yeah, pretty basic. On a concrete slab foundation. It'll be open 24/7. No water or lights. Very minimally invasive, if you will. Self-storage facility. Any questions?
Start with the public. Yeah, anybody in the audience or Zoom have any comments or questions? If you can, please step up to the lectern and state your name.
Yeah, it's been a while. I'm Duncan Hewitt. I live on 23 Pleasant Hill Road in Hollis. And I'm going to refer back to a much earlier conditional on that site, which I understand has been modified. And I found that out tonight. But in that one, it said on number 4, this is July 26, 2017, all business activities shall be directed to use the main access in front of the property in Cape Road, Route 117. The secondary access north of the property shall only be used for personal use and owner of the property. No more than 2 employees in addition to the owner shall be on the property at any time without planning board approval. No hazardous materials or oil waste. I can go on, I can submit this. No further clearing of the vegetated buffer beyond the area identified. Have all these been changed?
I don't have any, we're working off a conditional use permit application that we have in front of us. I don't have the,
But
the
Then
conditional
my
uses.
issue would be, this would supersede that, and I'm just trying to understand if this has any relation to what can be done there. As an aside, I had misread, I thought I was in a butter, we talked about this, and clearly what Tom is proposing is much more modest than I had envisioned. My concern overall, though, is the relation between commercial and residential issues. And if incremental growth commercially can impinge on residential character, at some point that has to be dealt with. And early on, when his original proposal was made, he characterized it in a certain way. That has changed, and now may change again tonight, or if this is accepted. So I'm trying to come to grips with at what point do these preceding conditions have some relation to the current proposal, because they're in the exact same space. And I'm not trying to be negative, but I'm trying to have really begin to come to grips with a larger vision of 117 becoming a commercial strip, which would be, from my point of view, sad. At the same time, it's good to have a good Subaru dealer.
So if there's any issues with the existing conditional use permit, those should all go through the code enforcement officer. There has been none that I've been made aware of. I don't think Dwayne has mentioned anything to anybody else on the board that I've heard of.
Well, I've gone to the code officers 3 times, and they told they were going to check and follow up, and I got no response. Over 7 years. I know this is uncomfortable, but
Well-
if there is an issue here.
I guess my the issues that you brought up, clearing being one of them, the entrance being the second. From what I've seen of the plans and my understanding of them, there's no additional clearing of the lot for this project. The main entrance would still be the main entrance for this project as well. So the two that you're bringing to my attention seem to be in line with this project as well.
Okay, so
And none of what we talk about here right now changes the rules for the H&R. Is it H&RS or is it hours? HRS auto sales. That stays the same unless he were to come and say, hey, I want to amend this because I want to add lights because, and then we would have to vote on
well,
that.
that's what I'm confused by. If the foot gets in the door with one understanding of what's going to happen, and then he comes to you and says legitimately, hey, my business is flying off the wall. I need lights. You make a decision on that basis. But originally, when this was set up, it was clearly going to be limits to, and this was accepted, there were going to be restrictions to the size and the dimension of this project. And tonight, he described it as a small car and a small new project. At the same time tonight, he said, if this takes off, I have permission to go right up beyond my house and continue building. So at what point does the town, who may have a preference momentarily for commerce or next year for the residential, depending on planning, begin to balance those two things? So my neighbor has land, and I think, Tom, your land goes up pretty far, and if you just started building up there, then you would have a very different project than is being described tonight.
Well, once we approve this, doesn't necessarily mean he can just build as far as he wants. He can build the 100 by 20, and then afterwards, if he wanted to build out another 100, then he would again have to come in front of the board and have to present that plan.
I do get that, but I also get that the spirit of the initial application, and I can read more, was no mechanical work on the site, a limited number of cars. Now, I understand technically 15 cars for sale. Which 15? Could I have 500 cars there and then today say these 15 are for sale? And at that point, as the 500 an expanse, much larger vision, suddenly a yard. It's no longer a small project. So I'm just concerned as someone who's lived here for 45 years and really nurtured a property and has certain values, there's a balance. And I, frankly, we need good car dealers who sell used cars. I get that. I'm not against that. But I'm concerned about the value of the community and the character of the community and the balance. And I would really hate to see, hey, Tom's shop's going great, and I own property here. I'm going to put a coffee shop in. Let's put this in. Suddenly 117 is a strip. And that's what happens. And you can go legally, that's right, but this is the discussion I think the planning board needs to come to grips with. And I'm getting this sort of sense, oh, no, we're just going to do it incrementally and we'll approve or not approve. So I'm just bringing up these issues because I think you guys should consider the relation between residential and commercial and holding the line if that's the spirit of the first application. I'm not.
So I do think that the zoning ordinances do address that very well. This does fall in an economic overlay zone, which is designed to bring in more business along the state road corridors. So with the zoning ordinance that we currently have, this does address those issues. And it does fall within all of the ordinances at this time.
Yeah. See, when I was in the planning board, the goal was to have most of the commercial business in Deer Pond area and in Hollis Center. And so what I'm just saying is I've planned my life around that and the way I'm going to live. And then let's say it's not going to happen, but I thought it might. Suddenly there's a huge storage unit with 24/7 lighting abutting my land. That really diminishes the value of my property. I'm on a fixed income. And so I'm trying to hold on to, and it also diminishes the quality of my life. I know you don't want to deal with it. I can see this.
No, I don't. We'll deal with every one of your issues if you'd like. It's not an issue on my end. Judging, reading the ordinance, reading our zoning, there is nothing, the way that the comprehensive plan's been written, this is well within the limits of all of those ordinances and zoning.
So I don't know when, Tom, you can answer this, when the rule changed that he could have maintenance and repair, because originally in his application, no, not going to happen. But I approached over a period of 7 years the town. I met with the code enforcers. One woman was here very briefly. Then the earlier one, and then there was a temporary one who was at my house, and we had the discussion. And he did agree with me that there appeared to be far more cars at that site than was supposed to be.
Tom, can you address those issues?
But what I want to kind of know is this a lax enforcement that if Tom, he's legally in there, but he's got the foot in the door, and if you're looking the other way, oh yeah, we'll go along with this. And just are the code enforcers enforcing?
That we don't have any control over the code enforcement, so, and like we said, any further development would require conditional use change on this application, so it would have to come back to the board or be a de minimis change by the code enforcement officer.
And the 1.3.5, 3.5 indicates if there's a violation of that agreement, you cannot go ahead with the second request. So
Correct.
I made that inquiry and I was never answered. I'm not saying there was a violation, but it seemed, and then I found out tonight you got a different thing. I got that. And you are coincidentally on the planning board. So I'm just saying this is perhaps time for a balance between residential and commercial interests.
And that might be a change for the zoning itself rather than a single conditional use permit.
A few years back, the planning board set up this economic overlay zone along the state highways, like you said.
When was that?
I couldn't tell you exactly. It's been a few years in the past. But it was voted on at a town meeting to accept the changes to the zoning ordinance. So it's not something that was arbitrarily decided upon up here at this table.
I got you. I understand that.
And the fact that Tom sits on the planning board has nothing to
No,
do,
I understand.
well, I want to be sure that it's clear, has nothing to do with the fact that he got an amendment to his original conditional use permit, if that's the case.
I just have a number of questions in that the first request, which Tom was clearly set limits, and then tonight, he's making it clear, he made it clear in the air, that I have the legal right to just build as many of these, storage units upon asking for the change of you guys passed up into his land, and that would affect my neighbor and myself. What is the depth of the commercial zone? If you are in a butter on 117 and you own 10 acres that went perpendicular to that zone, is that 10 acres all in the commercial zone?
You know, it's enough, like 250 feet maybe?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
Well, I'd like to.
500?
That's a good question for you.
Tom, if you want to answer some questions, I'll kind of,
Yeah,
fall through that.
let's start with, we'll start with the code enforcement complaints, because we're very much, since almost this conversation, so we just feel involved. It took a FOIA request for me to learn that there were no documented complaints about my business. I had always understood, from talking to various code enforcement officers, that they were. So that is, I want to say, a separate issue that needs to be addressed. The fact that you can't go to the town and say, hey, why wasn't my complaint recorded? Why didn't I get a response to my complaint? Why didn't I get
And
an
I
answer?
thought about that tonight. It's not about you,
No.
but it's about, the code enforcement system.
And then in the town perspective, there's some turnover with the complaints, fire reduction, one person, and actually keep track of what goes on. But the fact that as a resident, you couldn't go there and get an answer was not done. So when I explained to code enforcement officers why 15 cars for sale and 15 cars on the property were a very different thing, and the ordinance that backs it on a state level and the town level, and pointed out exact numbers in ordinance that supported my claims, those should have been forwarded to you, those should have been made available to you. The fact that the town dropped the ball there is, I wish I didn't know.
Yeah, in my case, I read it carefully and I said, technically,
You're looking for space
it
and bulk.
could be interpreted as you just said.
On
15
42.
cars for sale, but as many cars in the lot. But when you got up on here and talked about it, that was not my understanding, and that I don't think was the general understanding, that it was gonna be that limited number was the understanding. And that's my concern, that as things get incremental, that we have a foot in the door, and you could argue, well, now legally, I'm gonna make a proposal, I wanna have a coffee shop because it's gonna be a popular spot. And then at this point, I'm feeling the character of the area is changing, and it's worth considering, drawing some lines and understanding that, there should be some real challenges to an understanding of the spirit behind the proposal as well as the technical detail. And I know you can't deal with it that way, but I would hate to see a large storage unit situation with lighting, traffic on my corner. And you're gonna say, well, maybe that's legal. Now, the one other thing I'm gonna bring up here is I think there is a traffic issue. I think that that corner has become accident prone. There was a death this summer in July. I'm walking back from Jason's garage, I witnessed an accident. And the change is, we've got the Poland Spring trucks. So I think you've gotta be very smart about, in that area, all along 117, back and forth. There's been an accident. You said you took this guy in your arms.
Yeah, no, there's a dead man in my front yard. It wasn't cool. I'm not psyched about it either, but unfortunately, until the town wants to have a bigger conversation with not just you and me and a couple of people on the planning board, nothing's gonna get done.
Well, that's what I'm encouraging, the bigger conversation about the relation between residential and commercial.
I think the comprehensive plan committee
Right.
is, do they have open spots? I
Yes, they
think
do.
it would be right up your alley.
I spent a lot of time on committees.
I know,
Worked at
I
the
know.
university, and I was on the planning board here.
So the comprehensive plan committee, kind of, their purpose is to address the things that you were talking about, with goal of where they want the town to go, where the town's headed, where the citizens and residents think the town's headed.
I think we need to keep on track.
Yep.
Okay,
So,
getting off track.
To answer your question about economic overlay zone, there is lot frontage and minimum lot size requirements, but I'm not seeing any distance from the road.
So is it, it's the whole lot, whatever lot is on, so if it's a 200 acre lot, it goes straight back, and that 200 acre lot.
As long as it meets the
As long as it
lot
is-
frontage and minimum lot size per unit. So, I appreciate, do you have any other concerns you'd like to bring up?
Well, what I just found out, that's pretty extreme. And I think you as businessmen and landowners and realize the complexity of having residential and commercial interacting. And that, if the fact that you could have 200 acres and go back,
It's a zone that was, voted on by the town residents at a
think
town
they
meeting.
understood that issue?
That's not my
That's a whole
position to
different
take.
question, trust me. I wish,
I'm understanding that, and I'm understanding I'm currently being subjective. But it's right here that you guys can say, we have to stay, and Paul Matro is a close friend, and he always said, Duncan, they've got to deal with this legal, follow the ordinance, I get that. But there also, as people make proposals to you, you might understand what is the spirit behind that. Is this a foothold, which a year later, a person's gonna say, legally, I have the right to do this, and you guys, yeah, we can go, we don't have any choice. And I'm just thinking, hey, you guys made the big Wyndham, I don't like walk that street, the main street in Wyndham. And if that's where we're heading 117.
Unknown caller.
Nope, we definitely take everybody's opinion into our, into consideration when we're making decisions as a board, so.
Yeah, I did ask the Conservation Commission to come, and one person did tonight. And I think that would be a wise thing to, as you make these decisions, even on these kind of proposals, that you bring them in. I think that's what you usually do, right?
The Conservation Committee,
Commission, yeah.
if it's in the Saco River corridor, they typically chime in. If that's what you're referring to?
Well, my understanding is that you guys are encouraged to bring them in for advice. I even had it somewhere, it was in writing. But I may be so out of date, I don't know.
Oh, we might be encouraged to if it was by a wetland or if we had questions about it, probably, but.
Yeah, and I'm suggesting something else, that their values may be the balancing values that the commercial interests would benefit having in order to have a balance between residential and commercial. In this country, there are moments in which business rules, Got it. Then there might be another moment where conservation rules. Got it. We've seen that, we've seen it in the politics. How do you balance the two in this community?
The
And
zones.
I think the town has voted in the direction they want this to go, with the economic overlay zone, and that's how we'll, until the town votes otherwise, we'll continue using that guidance from the town. That's my opinion. I guess I don't speak for the board on that matter, but
And Tom, I would ask you, when you made your original proposal, did you, and you presented no lights, no mechanics, no work that was gonna be done in, I think you said Gorham and somewhere else, and then the cars were brought in. What was your thinking behind that?
That we would need to do it on site.
And why didn't you present what you anticipated? No, I'm not scared of you.
Just hit the microphone.
Okay.
The business grew, and we grew with it, so we added more things. And it followed ordinance and allowed us, so the business grew and we grew.
And at what point do you feel that they accepted you with the limits because it would create a better relation with the residential area?
They accepted the application because it followed the ordinance that people voted. That's how boards are bound. They can't be bound by opinion. If they're bound by opinion, it can change, and then you have, those guys decide that I'm not allowed to do this because somebody thinks it ruins the character. There's a fantastic lawsuit because it blatantly violates rights. It's in the ordinance. So if it follows the ordinance, it's hard.
So you did not do any mechanical work or bring cars to your site prior to the change?
so I think we are getting a little bit off topic. I think that's anything to do with the prior conditional use permit.
I think it has something to do, I'm just asking because I went to the town and asked enforcers to make that inquiry.
So I think that's an issue between you and the code enforcement officer, not, I don't think this is the proper time for that discussion. If you have an issue with the code enforcement officer, I would start with them, and if you're not getting where you'd like to go,
But
maybe
I
move up
did
to,
ask a question of Tom.
and then move up to the planning board,
I
no,
don't know,
select
you
board.
probably- Maybe you did, it totally up straight, and I like what you did.
I try to follow ordinance as best as possible. I do a very good job of following ordinance.
I believe it. I'm just
So,
trying to be a stickler because I think, hey, I've got these beautiful shad bark hickory trees, and I don't really, can't imagine the loss of those by having a garage right next to it. You know?
We don't have to worry about it now.
Because you and I seem to be more in the
we're
same
not-
on that. I know, you and I are more in the same.
yep,
I think so.
thank you, Doug. Anybody else have any comments from the public? Anybody on Zoom?
I think before we act on this conditional use application, we should ensure that the previous conditional use application is being adhered to.
The FOIA request will show you that there's no complaints on file with my business.
I'm not talking about complaints on file, I'm talking about making sure that the conditions of the original conditional use permit are being met, that's all.
Is there anything saying that they're not?
I don't have anything, Tom, that says they're not. I haven't looked at them all and made any decision, one way or the other. I just got a copy of the original use permit today.
Is Dwayne on Zoom? No, Dwayne.
There's somebody named Linda.
Oh, that's, Dwayne, is that your wife?
Nope, that one's mine.
We can definitely take that into consideration, Butch.
Yeah.
Thank you.
If there's no more public comment, we'll make looking for a motion to end the public hearing and return to the planning board meeting.
So move.
Looking for a second.
Second,
Nick, how do you vote?
yes.
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 So moved.
Thanks for time.
You're welcome to stay as we discuss. So, the first things that we should do is revisit the application, as we have not found it complete at this point. The notes that I had that were missing, prior to this meeting, which I think most of them have been provided, with the abutters letter, which has been provided, the floor plan, which has been provided, elevations and erosion control plans, and space and bulk was verified by Dwayne.
There was a cost estimate too, right?
Yeah, so the one thing that I'm not seeing is the cost estimate. So it's my opinion that we cannot find this application complete at this time without that, according to 7.4.5. Cost estimates for all proposed site improvements are needed. That's under, minor site plan review application requirements. So we'll need that before we can find this officially complete. That does not mean we cannot discuss this further. Some of the concerns that I'm hearing are traffic. Does anybody have any discussion on the traffic that this might bring to Route 117?
I use storage on, you brought up 302. I use storage on 302, and there's over, I think, 300 units there. And it's rare that I see anybody, like, no two people there at the same time. So I don't think this increases a ton of traffic in the area, even if you were to double the amount of units that are on this.
Any other comment?
I didn't see anything based on the number of units and based on the frequency that people would be using the units. Even as we were out there in the dark and I was observing traffic flow back and forth and even getting there, I don't see how the traffic would be affected by having even this or even double the amount of units there. Because you're just going to come in with a U-Haul, you're going to dump your stuff off, and you're going to go, and that's one trip, one car, one time, and it could be over a month or a period of months for one visit. So I don't see how any traffic would be affected.
I don't see that the traffic would be affected. There'll be a big increase in traffic. However, there's the garage across the street, Jason's Auto. There's this place. You come over the hill, you got Crossroads. Maybe some communication with the state is a 45-mile speed limit that nobody goes 45. If you go 50, they'll run over. Maybe you ought to push for a lower speed limit through that area, from just up above a little bit towards Deer Pond till down past the Four Corners. It might be a consideration to talk to the state about that. Maybe lowering to 35 through there, that might get them down to 45 or 40.
Is it DOT that puts in those speed signs that blink and yell at you if you go over? And wonder who has to motion them to get something like that.
I agree that, obviously speed limits are as what they are. I also am in the opinion that this isn't going to bring any undue traffic to the area. It's already an existing entrance that's being used by a commercial space as it is. I don't think I can logically say that this is going to bring significant more traffic to the lot.
There is going to be an issue with signage.
We discussed signage at the last meeting, and it looks like his plan does meet the signage ordinance.
It's not going
We
to. Page 60 in the zoning ordinance. Top paragraph. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it goes down through there and says, for the purpose of this ordinance, a sign utilizing both sides shall be considered as two signs.
Yep.
The requirement is for a sign, the maximum is 32 square feet, which is a 4x8 sheet, which what he has up there.
Yep.
2 signs would be 64. 64 is the maximum allowed on a site, I believe, according to 6.20.2D. Non-residential users may display on premises 3 signs. No sign is to exceed gross measurement area of 32 square feet. The total gross message area of these 3 signs shall not exceed 64 feet. So if you have he's proposing 2 signs, 4x8, both double-sided. That's 64 square feet per sign, so that's in excess of what's allowed there.
So, the way I read this ordinance is this is a separate use from the HRS use.
Mm-hmm.
So, D, as you're referencing, says non-residential users may display, may display on premises 3 signs. My understanding of that would be each use could have the 3 signs.
You'd have 3 signs for a single use on the property. That's my read on it, that's all.
My interpretation was he could have 3 signs per use. So he could have 3
Mhm.
signs for the car dealership, 3 signs for this use, and then he could actually he has a residential use, so he could actually have another sign, 2 signs up to 6 square feet.
Okay.
That was my interpretation. If anybody else reads it differently, open for discussion. That was how I read it.
Last week, that's what I had thought too.
Yeah, we noticed the same thing last week, Butch, and
Okay,
kind of had the same conversation.
all right.
Unless anybody else feels differently this week. Any other concerns about this project that we're seeing?
I'd like to ask, this piece of property that comes between you 2 folks, I don't see it on this map here. It must be before the split was made.
Yeah, it's broken off. You guys should have had an updated one sent. I don't know.
That was an email between Heather and I. Duncan made a request this week stating that he was not listed as an abutter.
Right, right.
So we did a little research and realized, I think July of 2023, there was a sale off of 2 acres separating Duncan and this parcel.
That's where that guy's had that camper back up in there?
What was that? No, that's still my land. Right there is mine.
Could you, microphone?
Lectern, please.
No, it's 2 acres to the left of that. It's not the field. You can kind of see from the road, poorly kept field. That's still my property. There's 2 acres to the left of that abuts Mr. Hewitt. So that was sold off last year.
Who sold it off? You sold it off?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, those tax maps aren't updated yet.
Yeah. It's all
Unfortunately.
sorry.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's probably the case.
I apologize. Yeah, the tax maps haven't been updated, and so you can't, even if you went to the town to look for it, it wouldn't be correctly there. So, very valid ask.
Okay,
So, and then I guess, Butch, to your comment, we'll just double check that there's no outstanding issues with Dwayne on the property. I've spoken with him before about this, and I want to say there was none, but we can double check with Dwayne.
well, I'll just say that in being open, I noticed there's more than 15 vehicles on the property. I know the original permit states that 15 cars for sale, doesn't address anything else. We have other ordinances in town that address unregistered, unserviceable motor vehicles on a lot. And it's just something to be looked into.
So I think that issue has been brought up to code enforcement in the past, and that, Tom, can you address, it was to a past code enforcement officer, I believe?
Yeah, so basically every code enforcement officer that joins Hollis, Mr. Hewitt calls them and says that I have too many cars, and they come over and I explain why I don't have too many cars and why it doesn't violate ordinance, and
That's not what I did. Excuse me, I did not do that. That's
somebody
not-
calls.
But I didn't, I contacted and met with them and said, would you look into what's going on over there? I did not specify any specific issue.
Does it
I
work?
didn't know.
Okay. So we'll check with Dwayne and just double check.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's unfortunate that they didn't put anything on record that.
I know it shouldn't be that, but I asked about the timing. Is it conceivable that there was a phase?
Can we, microphone, please?
It's my time to talk, but
You're still.
I don't want to be a pain in this, but is it conceivable that the law enforcers did not do their job at a point where Tom, for one reason or another, was doing work there? And that would be that would be illegal and would require another request and for correction on the whole site before you can make this request for the shelters, the storage. I know that sounds
Are you-
convoluted, but it's a real possibility.
Yeah, Mary, please. You might have an answer to my question I was just gonna ask.
So please go ahead and ask your question.
No, go ahead.
So if there was no notice of violation sent to Tom by any of the code enforcement officers, there's absolutely nothing that can be done.
That was,
There has to be a notice of violation in writing sent to Tom. And as far as I know, there hasn't been a notice of violation. I'm on the select board. We'd be happy to talk to you tomorrow about whoever you talk to from code. I don't know if you've talked to Dwayne directly.
I haven't talked to Dwayne. It's
So,
usually-
I
I've
can't-
never talked to Dwayne.
I can't account for what happened before, but if you'd like to come up and talk to us, we would welcome you to come up and talk to us.
thank you, Mary. That was actually
But it
exactly my
really
question.
has to be a written notice of violation for us to be able to do anything.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
But
And a second follow-up question to that is if someone did find a violation on a business and then they corrected that already at this time, now that it's corrected, would that affect a second request? Once it's corrected, it's kind of moved on from anyway.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Because once you issue a notice of violation, you expect them to take action, correct it,
Yeah,
and
then move
then
on.
the violation notice goes away, essentially, I mean, it's
Yeah.
corrected.
And Dwayne was on site today, and he made no mention of any violations on the site.
I understand that, and I'm just moving forward as this new project, which looks very reasonable. If there is a violation, I think this is the time to begin going forward to draw a line, because it is possible in the past that the code enforcers did not respond, did not look. It's a possibility. I'm not saying it's true.
Well-
And so I'm just saying,
Like I said, if you have any concerns, please bring up to the code enforcement officer. We don't have any statute over that, so.
one of the code enforcers I met with, and the next time I came back, she was gone,
We can't deal with that. We have nothing to do with the code enforcement officer, work for the selectmen.
No, I get it.
But the
And-
current select board has made it very
Firm.
firm with the current code enforcement officer that when there's a violation, we expect a written violation.
Mary, are we also getting, when there's a complaint, are those also being kept record of?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. To which we have none for this property. So I guess, unless there's any other concerns or discussion anybody has about this project,
I have a question, and this is gonna sound weird. And this may just be picky, but are these official records that are kept forever?
the
conditional use permits.
I would hope so.
Because I have a little concern that maybe we need to be just a tad more professional then. I would have a question on, if I was looking at this in the future, I would have a question on number 6, of certain applications. What's that mean? I think that this application looks very unprofessional to me, and I'm not sure that we want somebody in the future to look at this application. Just a thought.
I can appreciate your sentiment. We have no control over how an applicant submits an application. What we are looking for as a board is if they are satisfying the requirements of the application.
I think if you make a statement, you have to make, what do you mean, updated, Or what do you mean on complying with everything,
So, at this time, we don't have, zoning ordinance does not have any requirements that it needs to be typed. There's no requirements that it needs to be on a special form. Once we get into major site plan reviews, there are some more requirements.
A special form would make it much more straightforward for everybody, though. Just pointing that out.
I think if we look at some major, there are some size requirements. And once we go to a major, they are required to be sealed by a professional engineer, landscape architect, or survey license. So it seems to me that the minor site plan review applications are meant to be a little bit simpler. So at this time, I think we're just looking to make sure everything is there. We don't have any, unless anybody else on the board has.
Yeah, I just have a comment on the original application. Item number 5. It just reeks of unprofessionalism. I even used recycled paper for this one, so the DEP will be happy, with a heart signed by Tommy. For me, in my past professional life, if somebody sent me something like this, we'd have a chat.
And you rejected it because, if you rejected an application because it doesn't look pretty or doesn't look right
Oh,
to you.
no.
Okay. All right. I just want to be on the same page.
This reeks of sarcasm.
Yeah.
This reeks of unprofessionalism.
Right.
But if that's how you want to reflect yourself.
Yeah.
And then again, that's
I
a
can-
reflection on your potential business,
Okay.
that it would be unprofessional. So all
It
I'm
would
saying
be
is that-
humorous, is what it would be.
No, unprofessional.
To you. It's an
I agree.
opinion. At the end of the
anybody
day.
with a modicum of common sense, it
So
is
now we're
unprofessional.
insulting people coming to the planning board to start a business. That's not professional.
You did it to me. This is an insult to the board.
So that's your opinion.
No,
That's your opinion. There's nothing in the ordinance that says it has to be written a certain way. The steps are followed. You can say whatever and be
No, I'll
disrespectful.
rest my case, Tommy.
Alright.
You're reflecting yourself. I don't have to,
Alright.
that's your reflection.
This is I think the battery's bad.
I just thought maybe the board would want.
You guys should put something in the ordinance that says it has to be done professionally to Mary and Seth's standards. That's what you should do, right?
I think it's enough of the conversation at this time.
Right. That's going nowhere.
I appreciate the comments. For the record, this is not the first time we've had a handwritten application, so I think the board has not rejected them in the past. I guess that's,
Not rejecting this one either. Just making statements about it.
yep, thank you,
Yep.
Butch, I appreciate it. So, if there's no more comments about the the content of this application. We will move this to the next agenda to hopefully find the application complete and then move forward in the process from there.
And all we're waiting on is a cost cost.
Correct. The last item we need is a cost estimate.
Yeah.
If you can provide that to the admin secretary email, and we'll get that distributed.
At that time, will you know the actual sizes a little bit more too? You said something about it really kind of depends on cost, right?
That's, yeah, so the whole thing fluctuates with prices of metal.
Yep.
I can turn in the cost estimate tomorrow of $100,000, and a month after that, it could be $200,000. It's really, it's unfortunate. What are you struggling for?
Well, that's smooth talking. I'm sorry.
That's just facts.
I understand that.
Prices change.
I understand that, but there's a big difference between 100 and 200,000, and that is the point I brought up. That you're getting your foot in the door, and then this vagueness is going to allow projects that were perceived as being one thing to be accepted and possibly not be that thing. And I understand the nature of business and growth, but I think it's worth considering the professional request of an application is important. Because it does take out that getting, smooth talking, getting your foot in the door, and having this wiggle room. I think it should be done relatively professionally.
So do the cost estimates usually have to come from,
100,000,
they should come from the vendor?
That's a big difference.
What's that?
The cost estimates, whatever you get from aluminum or whatever the materials are, just have it from the vendor, right? So
Yeah.
it's not something that was made up on a napkin, it was given to, if you got a lumber estimate from Hammond Lumber, we'd believe it, but Hammond Lumber, if they change their estimate, right, nobody can control
I
that.
understand that, but you're talking about the size of the project, the impact in the community, the potential of lighting.
There's no lighting on the plan.
Okay, so let's say the plan grows up the hill.
We could talk about all kinds of ifs.
I know that.
What about this, what about that? Right now, we're dealing with an application for an unlit facility of a specific size. If it gets approved, that's what will be there. If it's more than that, it'll be reduced to meet the requirements of the application. It's simple.
It just seems that there's quite a difference between 100,000 and 200,000.
We'll wait to receive the cost estimate and we'll evaluate at that time.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Tom.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys.
Next item on the agenda, LD 2003 zoning ordinance changes, affordable housing ADU. So we received some legal advice from the town attorney.
Is that this?
It was an email. I found it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Um,
Oh, yeah, I didn't see this at all. I got two.
so if you look on page,
Thank you.
those are my email, so
Here's the sphere.
accessory dwelling units. And this is directly from the town attorney. My position is that the municipality is permitted to establish an owner occupancy requirement for either the ADU or the principal building. With that said, the statute itself is ambiguous and would expect that at some point in the future, the legislature may clarify the issue, or perhaps a court may find that such restrictions unpermitted. Until then, however, I'm comfortable with the town keeping such a restriction in place if you so choose.
That's not in here. What you just read?
So
Oh, it is, okay,
Okay,
alright,
yeah, I was-
sorry.
I had it on my phone, so I was, found it easier there it's on, I believe, accessory dwelling unit, page 3, top paragraph. So the board's gone around and around and around on this. I think the vote would change depending on who's sitting.
That probably is
Oh,
the same
yeah,
company.
okay, never mind then. Thank you, Mary.
You're welcome.
Working off electronic and paper, apologies. With that from legal, is there any more discussion on that? I know we've kind of went round and round on this one a lot. I think initially our last topic was to wait and see what the comp plan said. Is everybody still on board with that discussion? Wait for some guidance from the comprehensive plan?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, so we will table this discussion until the comprehensive plan is released.
Okay, I have this other thing, 4.15 accessory dwelling, evidently from the town of Waterboro.
Yeah, that's a, that's a
Good
separate,
example.
that's a separate issue.
That's a separate issue, all right.
I think
Okay,
that was,
is it?
I think that was meant to be discussed in this issue as well. So, accessory dwelling units. According to, there's been some directive from legal that we need to add in some more requirements for affordable housing development and density allowances. So last time, we asked our attorney for some clarification on where these need to be allowed. And his response was, according to Hollis 2008 comprehensive plan, both Hollis Center and the former transitional area are designated residential growth areas. This would encompass at least the Hollis Center zone and perhaps the North Hollis Village zone. Note that there should be a mapping accompanying the comprehensive plan that specifically shows where these growth areas are. He could not find it. So Hollis's growth areas might be slightly different than what he has stated. Please note that this answer assumes that both of these zones allow multifamily housing. He didn't have access to the use chart for some reason. Assuming that there are no other areas outside of these growth areas to provide public water and sewer, then the HCV and the NHV are the two areas where affordable housing developments must be permitted at the density of 1 unit per 16,000 square feet or 1 unit per 2,000 and so on. And there are some additional requirements. They also must provide adequate water and sewer capacity, either public or private. They must comply with shoreline zoning, if applicable, and they must remain affordable for 30 years with specific incomes.
When they say specific incomes, that's
There is some definitions of the
Okay.
incomes in the ordinance. So we've been provided, Mary was kind enough to give us the Waterboro ordinance as kind of a template, which they do a pretty well job of taking it directly from the state of Maine. I think there's a couple things we talked about adding, is making sure that the 30-year comments were in the ordinance, that the income levels have to be maintained for those 30 years.
How would you ever do that? How would you build affordable housing today and have it stay affordable housing for 30 years?
So it's based off a percentage of,
Oh, I read that long thing about the income and so forth and so on.
yeah,
But that, I would read that and I would say, okay, so we build a starter home for somebody, we sell it to them for $120,000. And they decide they want to put a garage on. They put a 2-bay garage on, the house is $300,000. Well, they can't do that because it has to stay in that income bracket for 30 years.
so there is,
I just don't see how that's realistic, that statement. That the house must remain affordable to meet that definition for 30 years.
so if, what he's referring to is, in this proposed ordinance that we have, letter B, for owned housing, a development in which household whose income does not exceed 120% of the median income for the area as defined by United States Department of Housing and Urban Development. Under the United States Housing Act of 1937, can afford a majority of the units that the developer designates as affordable without spending more than 30% of the household's monthly income on housing costs. So
It'd take a week just to come up with that figure.
well, we're given the It's definitely brings challenges.
Yeah, absolutely.
Enforcement will be a challenge.
I think a lot of towns enforce this through complaints. So, like if tenants or homeowners that are purchasing look back on things and then they complain about it, I think that's the only way. I can't imagine a city having code enforcement looking at every single sale.
No, I
I can't imagine anybody's doing that. Right.
So our attorney did weigh in regarding the specific incomes. The last piece is accomplished through the recording of an affordable housing declaration of covenants prior to building permits being issued. The declaration is recorded and it specifies the affordability restrictions on the specific development. However, the town would be responsible for enforcing that declaration, which does take staff time over a number of years. He does have a couple strategies to suggest in that regard if this is something I'd like to discuss further. So that's definitely going to be the difficult part is the enforcement. We're required to bring this in. I hate to say we want to bring it in and figure out enforcement, but we do have a timeline, I believe, for the June 23rd warrant. So we do have some time to hammer this out. I think maybe we go back to Ben and ask him what those strategies are. Mary, do you mind reaching out to him for that? We can have those for next meeting potentially. So it looks like we do have to have this affordable housing in the HCV and the NHV zone.
To Hollis and North Hollis?
Hollis Center Village and North Hollis Village.
Yeah, near Pond, yeah.
So I did send Ben the newest, the updated comprehensive plan that we're working on.
The draft.
The draft, just
Yep.
to make sure that it still was the same areas.
Yep.
So I'll ask him about that too.
Okay. Perfect. So it looks like once we have some answers, if we do choose to go off Waterboro's, which is basically a copy and paste of the state's, this should be pretty easy ordinance to write at least. To follow
we just-
state regulations.
Right. If we're just copy and pasting from the state, then it should be, right.
I think the only thing that I was hoping that we would continue discussing, because we brought it up a few times, talked about it, kind of came to a understanding we just needed to move on, was the owner occupied. And the last time we tried to vote on it, Don wasn't here.
So that was what I was discussing before this one. We're gonna wait for the comprehensive plan to come out,
Okay.
because every time we vote, it's split, or depending who's here that evening, it can sway one way or the other.
Yep.
So
Okay.
we decided to wait for the comprehensive plan to come out to make any changes.
Do you know when that is?
That's,
We're
Estimated.
hoping to get the comprehensive plan on the June ballot, but the other thing the lawyers think is that that's going to become a moot issue because it's going to become a state,
Yeah.
Yeah.
a legal issue where somebody challenges that you have to be owner occupied, and they say, no, you can't do that.
so, yeah, it might get solved for
I'm
us.
on the legislative board for MMA, and that specific item of accessory dwellings hasn't come up yet, but I think it probably will this year, so.
Perfect. So next on the agenda is cannabis. I wish Heather was here. She's kind of been the one spearheading this.
Since there's no urgency to it anyway, do you want to just push it to when Heather's here?
That was my next sentence.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, if you're here to speak on it, please.
Hi, Terry Walters, town resident. I'm here to talk about the cannabis issue. I know this committee's put a lot of time in that, to review it, to hopefully improve it. And the last meeting I watched, Chairman Gregg said he wanted to keep it on, so maybe the public would come in. So I came in to give you some comments.
Perfect.
Fantastic.
When the original ordinance was written, I think the planning board did a good job. They listened to concerns. They did some things beyond what the state did, particularly the odor ordinance. And I think that's helped the ordinance be successful in town. And now that we're opening it up for change, there's one change I'd like to see you guys do. And we're making changes to accommodate the marijuana industry, which is fine. But I think we need an additional protection for the people in town. And I've spoken about this many times, and it's kind of my pet peeve, I guess. But and I hope we're all in agreement with this. And if not, I'll educate you on it. The THC products are harmful to dogs. There's no question. If you don't believe that, just take out your cell phone, put cannabis effects on dogs. Call the emergency vets down Scarborough. They'll tell you it's THC poisoning in dogs is very commonplace. And people give their dogs gummies and things without realizing it's sick, make them sick. Dogs pick up residues. My dog has been poisoned twice. It's a very distressing thing to see a dog go through it. They're extremely sick. It's a very expensive vet bill, and it's unnecessary. So there's not much we can really do about it, but there's one thing we can do. And it's not going to cost anybody any money. It's not going to infringe upon anyone's rights. Is under the part of the ordinance that says requirements for stores. Require stores to have a sign that says THC products are known to be harmful to dogs. Please use and dispose of properly. Now, when my dog was poisoned, I went to one of the vendors in town and spoke to him about that. And I was told that's not going to work because dogs can't read. And, you know, and that was kind of a slap in the face, quite frankly. You know, if you're a responsible businessman and you know your products can cause harm, then do something about it. And it's not going to cost you a lot of money. It's not onerous. It's the right thing to do. And just post it. Now, when we went through this before, I was told the state was going to take some of this marijuana money and do education, and they were going to do PSAs, and they'd probably be doing PSAs. And I've never seen a PSA by the state on educating people about marijuana use. So this is an opportunity for the town to go just a little bit further, make us a little bit better. And like I say, it's not onerous. It's just going to have to make up a sign, post it, and when code enforcement does their checks, just be sure it's in place. You know, I ran a sawmill for years, and I had all kinds of things I had to post from OSHA and every department in the government. So this is not a big deal. But I just think it's a very simplistic educational tool. How many people you go out on the street and say, do you know that marijuana is toxic to dogs? No? Well, just let's educate people. And let's not be afraid to educate people. So that's all I have to say.
Perfect. Thank you,
Okay,
Terry.
thank you.
I wrote that note down for our next discussion. I thought I recall there was something happening with that from Heather, but
I don't remember off the top of my head.
this isn't my area of expertise, so I made a note, and we'll bring it up at the next meeting when Heather's back, and maybe she can weigh in on if there's actually anything currently already on the books. I appreciate your input.
I have to agree with that. I have a small dog that fell into that same problem. So,
It smells good.
smells good, they eat it. Doesn't do them good.
I said my dog will eat things that don't smell good, so he would probably eat it too.
I wasn't aware of that. Is it because it's a gummy, a brownie, or is it just THC? THC is the toxic.
So that was mine.
But anything, it's sweet smoke.
And you know, it seems funny. It's not funny because it can really be bad. You know, my next door neighbor had 3 dogs. He says, my dog's not gonna be able to play with Lila anymore for a few months. You know, because,
So you get a $1,200 bill.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Sure, it's a very good point, very good point.
Perfect. Like I said, I have a note, and when we bring that subject back up, we'll definitely discuss that. New business, planning board participation of comprehensive plan committee. So the planning board is, we're required to have a member on the comprehensive plan committee. Looking for any volunteers.
I'll do it.
Butch?
Yeah.
Anybody else, any interest? I mean, do we wanna,
Heather expressed an interest. We spoke last meeting, and Heather said she had an interest in
Well,
being on the comprehensive
fine with me
plan
then.
too. But if there were 2 people on it, then
There's no restrictions to how many, or just needs to be one.
minimum of 1?
Is it like any idea when they're meeting and how often, and undetermined yet?
I have no idea. You can do it. You want to do it?
I don't know. No.
It's sort of
they're not gonna let me do it,
undetermined,
so.
but we're in the process of giving Southern Maine Planning and Development Commission more information that they asked for, because all the information they had when they did the original was up to 2015, so we've now given them the additional data for the next 9 years or whatever they asked for. And so they're working on that. And then we're going to be sending out specific sections to like the fire department and Parks and Rec so they can update their sections. And probably we'll be sending out the planning board section to the planning board to update before we start meeting. So, like, there's 4 chapters. The first chapter is basically historical, so I don't think it'd be a big deal to review. I would say probably 6 to 8 meetings max. You know, and it would have to be before, April 4th or whatever, so we can get it on the.
Do we wanna,
And we'd probably start meeting the beginning of December, mid-December, have a first meeting and just set up a plan.
So we could decide at next meeting if Heather wants to go, or both of you guys want to
Or
go.
it could be both.
I'm interested. I'm
wanna-
not. I don't know if I'm ready to commit.
you could also join as,
As a public.
Right.
Yeah.
do we wanna, I know Heather showed interest.
Yeah.
Do we wanna put 2 members on?
Yeah. No, the more the merrier. The more, like I said, it's hard enough to get people on committees
Yeah.
for the town and to come out. So if we can coerce them,
I,
conscript maybe, is that the word?
so when do you think the first meeting is, Mary? Sorry.
Probably, I would say mid-December, just to set up a plan and after the holidays, just,
I hate to nominate Heather when she's not here.
I know. I feel. Is it a consistent day, or is it a different day each week? Okay. Okay. All right. Yep.
probably won't be on Wednesdays.
Is that based on who's on the committee and all of their schedules that work out? So it's really not knowing until everybody's on.
Right. Right.
That makes sense.
So we'll tentatively have Butch and Heather, potentially Nick, join,
Yeah, I'm interested.
and we'll make a final decision next meeting. Does that sound good for everybody? Just so we don't,
Perfect.
if we have 3, that's awesome. Next item is the floodplain management ordinance update recommendation, which is in the packet everybody received today. You want to give a quick summary, Mary? I'm sure you read this cover to cover.
Oh, yeah, cover to cover. It basically is just changing one specific job description because they changed professional engineer to qualified professional. Because they didn't feel that with floodplain management that you could afford to just say that you had to have a professional engineer because there wasn't enough professional engineers. So they changed all of those in the ordinance itself, and I think starting on page 6, to a qualified professional, and then they changed the word engineering judgment just to standard practice. And then every once in a while, and then they added a definition of what a qualified professional was.
Do we need to add that definition to our zoning ordinance or just the flood?
No, to the, just
Just
to
the
the
floodplain.
floodplain ordinance. So it's maybe, I want to say 8 changes.
Yeah, just a brief overview. I'm only seeing,
You know,
Just
there
some
just
changes.
isn't very many.
And taking out the PE part and
Mhm.
putting in qualified professional is a smart thing. I used to hire PEs, and PEs are quite pricey.
Right, and I think it's so that it gets done and the people
Yeah.
can afford to have it done.
So they've lowered the standards,
correct,
lowered the standards so that more people could
comply.
comply. Okay.
Not
More
really
qualified
lowered the
people
standards,
comply,
but
yeah.
just said that, other people that are qualified can certainly review it and, review what the standards are, so.
I mean, because it's one of those things where we have to adopt it anyway, correct? We don't really have a,
Yeah, but we
Pretty
don't,
much.
yeah. So
Okay.
what I was gonna do is
Yep.
I'll go through it and redline it and then get you a clean copy of the changes, because there's only, like I said, about
awesome.
8.
Any objections? Looking
don't
for a
think you
motion.
So the additions, so did we add permanent to this, and it wasn't permanent before, so it's temporary wharves, piers, and docks are not applicable to these statements? That's added?
A lot of these things don't apply depending on what zone you are, so yeah. So there's just different added conditions, and I'll do that, and then you can have both this and this,
Gotcha.
and just make sure I got them all,
Okay.
okay?
Perfect.
So I don't think we
Okay.
should do anything with adoption until I do that.
Perfect, you'll get a
Makes sense.
full update? Perfect. So we'll move that to, the next meeting. And then lastly, we have the subdivision regulations of the town of Hollis, from subdivision planning and development. This is not a red line version that we currently have. Do we have a red line version, Mary, or did they just provide this draft?
I think they just provided the draft, so I don't think we have a red line version. I think their recommendation is that we just totally adopt a new version. Because I can't remember when our last one was done, but it was a long time ago.
2009.
And as many of you know, we have a lot of subdivision problems right now with a lot of the subdivisions that have been approved in the past.
Well, I
Was it-
don't think we should just blanket pass anything.
Yeah,
Agree.
seeing what changed.
I'll go through and compare the two and make a red line
Right, okay.
version out
Yep,
of ours.
yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is definitely something that warrants time.
Absolutely.
Oh, no, I think it needs to be reviewed, Butch, but I think that we're gonna end up not wanting to present the public with a red line version and just, maybe just enact a new version.
Well, it might be, but we ought to be sure we can live with it. after we
Right,
do it.
right.
Bert, if you
Because
have,
as many of you know, we have a lot of problems with previous subdivisions at the moment. We have 3 of them that we're actively working with.
Yep.
One of them was that the findings of fact were done after the plan was signed, and that one of the finding of fact was that you had to have them sprinkled. And one of the houses got sprinkled, then 2 houses didn't, and then when the guy came back a couple weeks ago, the lawyer said the findings of fact override anything that's on your plan, and you have to sprinkle it. So. And then we have the Harmon Farm still going on, and Noble Ridge has also become a problem because the road wasn't constructed as per the plan. So
Which
our
was that?
engineer is going to be going out with BH2M next week to review it with them, what they have to do. They wanted to pave it, and they're not going to be paving it anytime soon.
Which one was that?
Noble Ridge, it's across from Dead River on 202.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Awesome, Butch, if you do have time to read that, that'd be huge.
Yeah.
Compare.
Yeah, I'll compare this with
Thanks,
what we
Butch.
have, and I'll report any differences and whatever.
That'd be huge.
Because I'm telling you, when you just adopt something somebody else gives you, you always end up with problems.
That's definitely was not my intent.
Right.
Awesome. And it is yeah. So, no public comment. Anybody on Zoom? Plan for next meeting. First order of business will be Tom Witkowski. Am I getting there?
You got it. Is that the 27th?
So, next meeting,
It's the 27th Thanksgiving.
that is the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. That is typically a conflict for everybody.
Town office closes at 4 o'clock.
So, I suggest we skip the meeting of November 27th,
Switch
Put
to
us out
December
to
11th.
December 11th.
So we'll just have to decide right then who's
Well, the
going to
only
join
thing
the.
that's affected is Tom's project.
Yeah, I know. That's fine. I'm more than willing to work with the town. It's fine. We're not in a rush.
So, December 11th will be the next meeting. First order of business with Tom Witkowski. Number 2, affordable housing.
7 o'clock.
And that hopefully we'll have some answers from Ben. 3, we'll readdress cannabis. 4, we'll elect or nominate comprehensive plan committee members. 5, we'll review floodplain. And 6, we will hopefully get to subdivision regulations. Anything else anybody have on the agenda for next meeting?
We're putting off ADU until
Comp plan.
comp plan.
I think that's, with the split board, I think that's.
Yep.
Does that work for everybody? Anything else they think should be? Yeah. Yep.
Somebody asked us today how you measure the ADU. Does it include bathrooms and closets, or does it just include the living space?
Normally, measurements just include living space. It don't
Okay,
include
and that's
closets.
what I said, but I just wanted to make sure before I,
If we go back to the dwellings definition,
because that's how I've done it, but I wanted to make sure so I wasn't giving misinformation.
What about entryways? Entryways, would that count?
I don't know.
Right.
is it
You
in the
know?
space or is there a door separating?
So that was the question that came up, and
Yeah.
I said, gee, I think it's just, living space. It's not your closets and, because there's a question about someone wants to have an ADU and they want to have, I want to say a garage in a upper floor considered, and we thought it was going to be over the 900 square feet.
Because of the garage, right.
If we included the
Yep.
whole area or something, so we were trying to figure out how to measure it.
So I think that's gonna fall on Dwayne. unfortunately. I think we can all have a different opinion, but I think that's gonna be a Dwayne call. That'd be my opinion. Maybe he has some state statutes to fall back on. But
Somewhere it defines living space, and it's not closet. I can't tell you where, but I know it's there somewhere.
Sorry we didn't help.
Dwayne asked me this question a couple weeks ago, and I pulled something up that gave some guidance, but I'd have to look back to my conversation with Dwayne. But sheds, garages definitely were not part of it. Entryways would be a gray area, I think. So,
Well, the question you asked, is there a door between that and the living room, in the living area? Okay,
right.
you know, like you go up steps and go in the foyer and then go in another door and go in out. I wouldn't think the foyer would count.
Just food for thought, you don't have to.
Yeah. Long story short, I don't have a definite answer for you.
Okay.
I'd fall back on Dwayne's interpretation. He's the one that has to yay or nay it. Any other comments for this evening?
A lot of
I-
paperwork this
I
time.
think we should ask Wayne to give us a letter stating that HRS Auto Sales is in compliance.
Yep, that was in my notes.
Okay.
Yep.
Just, the question gonna come up.
Yep. Yeah, so we'll be looking for any,
Well, he's got that, I got my copy of the original permit from the
yeah,
code office, so she has them all there, scanned in, so he can get it and check it.
yeah, we'll ask Dwayne if there's any notices of violation, which I believe he said no, but we'll double check that. With that, looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
All in favor?
Yes.
Yeah.
yes.
So moved.